This is actually like the first few pages of the novel manuscript. Lydia, Lydia, girl, where are you? Lydia Hemwa shouted. Damn, girl, Lydia Two's voice responded in Lydia Hemwa's ear. What do you want? Get your butt up here and help me do this inventory, that's what. Lydia Hemwa barked before shutting off her internal calm by tapping her left wrist with her right index finger. She turned to Lydia 3, who was standing behind her, and said, I don't know what that wench's problem is sometimes. You know she likes to be defiant, Lydia 3 offered. She likes to do her own thing. You mean prove she's her own woman? Lydia Hemwa said. That's a joke. She's not her own woman. She's me, just like you are. We're all the same woman. The two women were physically identical. The utilitarian pocket-covered jumpsuits they wore differed only in color. Lydia Hemwa's red versus Lydia 3's tan. Lydia 2 climbed a ladder into the storage room, joining Lydia Hemwa and Lydia 3. The elder of the two clones. Lydia 2 wore a black jumpsuit and a different hairstyle from her clone sister Lydia 3 and her original Lydia Hemwa. Long braids instead of a short haircut. About time you decided to join us, Lydia Hemwa said to Lydia 2. Whatever, Lydia 2 snapped. I'm here now. I'm ready to work. You don't have to give me a bunch of shit. I wouldn't give you shit if you were here on time, Lydia Hemwa said. And then she handed Lydia 2 a pair of translucent gloves with a metallic sheen. After handing another pair of these gloves to Lydia 3 and putting on a pair herself, she declared, let's start counting and adding, ladies. After finishing the inventory, the three women sat in the spaceship's small community room to eat dinner from their supply of pre-made instant meals. Sitting on separate cushioned seats with trays on their laps, the women chatted. We got a big haul of jump juice this time, huh, Lydia E? Lydia 3 said. Yep, and a good amount of light gas, Lydia E. Hemwa replied. Light gas and jump juice were common slang terms for the two forms of fuel that made interplanetary and interstellar travel possible. That's 50 million credits once we deliver. Whew, Lydia 2 exclaimed. Let's take a break and jump off to that resort on Pele Malhuca. I could use a volcanic mud bath. I like the fizzy water shows myself, Lydia 3 chimed in. That soda pool with a geyser next to it just makes me tingle. She feigned a shiver and giggled. We're not going there, Lydia Hemwa said. Why? Asked Lydia 2, putting her arms down and glaring at her original. It's not like we can't afford it. That's got nothing to do with it, Lydia Hemwa said. I've got over 500 million credits stored up. That's more than enough for me to quit this business and jump back home. Lydia 2 and Lydia 3 stopped eating and looked at their original. What do you mean jump back home? Lydia 2 asked. We're already home. I mean back to Earth, Lydia Hemwa responded. We're going to jump back to Earth? Lydia 3 asked. After all these years, Lydia 2 said. Why do you want to go back to Earth? Because I have enough credits to quit working and go back, that's why, Lydia Hemwa told her clones. When people get rich enough so they don't have to work, they quit working and settle down, just like Mama did. That doesn't mean we have to jump back to Earth, Lydia 2 said. We can settle down somewhere else. I don't want to live on one of the colonies, Lydia Hemwa responded. I want to breathe natural air and feel open space. Those big domes on the colonies are just as confined as a spaceship. I wasn't talking about the colonies, Lydia 2 said. I want to live anywhere under Earth or jurisdiction. There's no difference between living on Earth or colony and somewhere else, Lydia Hemwa said. There's no known planet where Earthers can live without being enclosed in artificial environments but Earth. Besides, it's home. We were born there and raised there. You need to be glad of that. I don't care about none of that, Lydia 2 shouted, tossing her tray aside and stood up and left the room. After a moment, Lydia Hemwa said, what is wrong with her? I don't know, Lydia 3 said. I'll go talk to her. She rose from her seat, walked to where Lydia 2 had been sitting, and picked up her tray from the floor. After placing both Lydia 2's trays and hers into a receptacle, she went to Lydia 2's sleep chamber. The spherical chamber's rough-textured, dull metallic walls were adorned only with a large wound window, directly opposite the chamber doorway, that showed the expansive space outside. Lydia 2 sat on the sleep pad that made the room's floor. Her arms were wrapped around her knees, and she faced the window. Lydia 2's back was to Lydia 3 as she stood in the chamber doorway. Lydia? Lydia 3 gently called to her clone sister. She doesn't care about us. Lydia 2 sobbed. She sniffed and snorted, letting Lydia 3 know she was crying. What do you mean? Lydia 3 asked as she stepped onto the sleep pad, got on her knees, and crawled over to Lydia 2. She doesn't give a damn about us, Lydia 2 said, choking on her words as she cried. Please, Lydia 3 said, sitting next to Lydia 2 and placing a hand on her back. Talk to me. Tell me why you were so upset about Lydia wanting to go back to Earth. Lydia 2 lifted her head and turned to Lydia 3. What is wrong with you? If you don't recognize why going back to Earth is the last thing I or you should want, then I don't have anything to say to you. Lydia 3 was hurt and confused by this, but she persisted in trying to both comfort and question Lydia 2. Why do you have to be like that? Please, you shouldn't be mad at me when I'm trying to listen to you and understand you. Lydia 2 clicked her tongue, rolled her eyes, and then said, you must like being treated like dirt. No, I don't, Lydia 3 responded. No, you must, Lydia 2 said, because that's how we're going to be treated back on Earth. With that, Lydia 2 rose up on her hands and knees and crawled on the staff pad to the window. As she gazed through the glass of the stars outside, she said, after all the times we visited Earth colonies, you know how we're treated, how we have to act, how it is for those places for us. I know, Lydia 3 said. It's hard for us when we haven't lived in Earth jurisdiction for so long. We just visit those places every now and then. But we've been fortunate. We've had a life of travel and freedom that most people like us don't have. And Lydia's never treated us as lower or less than she is. She's our big sister. She loves us. She's our original, Lydia 2 erupted. She's over us. She gets to tell us we got to go live on Earth for the rest of our lives and we can't do anything about it. Big sister, my ass. Look, I know you don't like being in Earth-controlled places, Lydia 3 said. But Earth is such a wonderful world. Don't you remember that? If you want, we could travel a lot to the Outlands, so you don't have to spend a lot of time in the city. I know, and you know Lydia will be fine with that. Lydia 2 turned her back on Lydia 3 to look out the window. I shouldn't have to have Lydia's approval to do a damn thing. Now leave me alone. Lydia 3 brushed back tears from her eyes before she stood up and left the chamber. Lydia 3 found Lydia Hemwatt in the community room stretched out on one of the seats, watching a hollow video of a parrot-inhabited forest in Australia. Australia has the greatest diversity of parrot species on Earth, Lydia Hemwatt said. They come in so many colors. They make New Guinea birds of paradise look dull. It'll be nice to see them. Yeah, Lydia 3 agreed, and she sat down next to her original. We can go outside cities and spend a lot of time in the Outlands with the credits we got now. Lydia Hemwatt responded. We sure couldn't do that before. Mama always wished she had enough credits to take us on more than one trip a year. Yeah, Lydia 3 sighed. It was hard for her to think about Mama while feeling sad. We can have a fun, relaxing time back on Earth, Lydia Hemwatt continued. We don't have to work and we can travel as much as we want. I don't get why Lydia's losing her mind about going back. You know she doesn't like being around Earthers, Lydia 3 said. She doesn't like being treated like a clone. Mama raised us together to be sisters, and everything I had, you both had. Most clones don't get treated like that. I know, Lydia 3 said. And as soon as we grew up, we left home and started working in this business. We spent most of our lives being away from Earth society. In a lot of ways, she's gotten spoiled. She's had the privilege to not act like a clone, but she is. She's my sister, but she's my clone. She belongs with me, she is me. You're both my flesh and blood. I've always treated you as good as I treat myself. That's how Mama raised us. And that's not going to change when we jump back to Earth. You should go tell her that, Lydia 3 said. She already knows all that, Lydia Hemwatt said. Again, she doesn't want to be treated like a clone, and I can't control what other Earthers say or do. If she wants to just never leave our home except when we go to the Outlands, that's fine. But we're jumping back home so we can live and breathe on a planet we were born to live on. Please talk to Lydia. She doesn't think you care about her. Did she say that? Lydia Hemwatt said. Turned her head quickly to glare at Lydia 3. Yeah, Lydia 3 said. She said you don't care about us. I love her, Lydia Hemwatt spat out. And she says I don't care about her. She doesn't know how good she has it, how good her life is because she's my clone. Lydia Hemwatt stood up. I was just going to let her have her little pouting spell and just leave her alone, like I always do. But you know what? You're right. I am going to talk with her. We're going to have this out right now. Lydia Hemlock started to walk out of the room. When Lydia 3 started to rise up, Lydia Hemlock said, don't follow me. This will be between her and me. I don't need you trying to mediate or hold us back. It's all coming out, and let the chips fall where they may. As Lydia Hemlock left the room, Lydia 3 turned to the hollow video and watched red-tailed black cockatoo pairs feed and groom each other as they perched on a tree branch. Lydia! Lydia! A harsh, choked-up voice in her ear startled Lydia 3 out of her engrossment with the hollow video. What's going on? You all right? Lydia 3 answered, knowing from a lifetime of listening that it was Lydia 2 speaking through the comm. Come here right now, Lydia 2 shouted. Lydia 3 got up and hurried to Lydia 2's chamber. She stopped at the entrance, frozen in shock at what she saw. Lydia Hem was lying on the sleep pad, motionless. A large blood pool was under her head. Lydia 2 was kneeling over Lydia Hemlock, holding her original's head. Lydia! Lydia 3 screamed. What happened? Oh, never mind what happened. She changed her thinking from panic to action. I'm going to get the medikit. Don't bother, Lydia 2 said with a soft sigh. What do you mean, don't bother? Lydia 3 shouted. Lydia's hurt. She's more than hurt, Lydia 2 shouted back. She's dead.